Hey, everybody, I would like to welcome you to another episode of Pop Culture Gems. This is a series where we talk to amazing creators, artists, cosplayers, voice actors, and so much more. If you like the interviews we do with these terrific guests, give us a thumbs up and subscribe to our YouTube channel, the CFG channel. We also release Pop Culture Gems on all podcast services like Apple, Google Podcasts, Stitcher Radio, and so much more. Or go to our main website, confreaksandgeeks.com, to our main website to not miss an episode. Today, I am interviewing a voice actor who is putting their mark in the voice acting world. He has been in great anime series as the tennis prodigy Ryoma Echizen in the Prince of Tennis series, the funny voice Pika in the One Piece series, as well as Bia Shinen in Skate, and so much more. I would like to welcome McKeand to the show. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing pretty good, man. Thank you so much for having me.
That's great. That is great. I hope you're having a great day. You know, it's actually kind of weird. It's freezing here in Texas, and I don't know why. It's
Yeah,
odd.
no, it's been weird. It's been really, really weird. I'm kind of glad I left Texas when I did, so I avoided a second ice storm, basically.
Oh my God, it is crazy. You know what's funny? Like, so I was in the process of moving. So I moved my studio, and I was like, okay, cool. I don't have to deal because I was in an apartment, and then
Mhm.
all of a sudden, I was like, okay, I decided I bought a house and I have some space, and I was going to be make one of these rooms my studio. I was like, don't have to worry about apartment living, don't share any walls. Then winter storm hits, and I was like, oh, don't worry, this is a brand new house. My heater was just got damaged, and I had to shut down the heater.
Oh
When
God.
Yeah, during the giant winter storm, so my house went down to like less than like I think 48 degrees in the house. So I was like,
Holy
yeah, it was insane. It was ridiculous. I was like, this house is only 3 months old. What the hell's happening? Yeah, it's just so ridiculous.
jeez.
Yeah, I was just like, oh God. It's like, of course it happens. But anyways, but nah, it's all good now. They fixed it. I don't have to pay a cent. Perfect. Perfect now.
That's
So
great. That's
yeah.
great. That's good. That's good. That's
But
good.
anyways, but let's get this party started, man. It was great. It's great to have you here. It's always fun. But let me ask you what I ask everybody here. What is your story? Like, what got you into voice acting?
So I'm like the perfect example of a fan turned professional. I grew up watching anime, playing video games, pretty much my entire life. And then when I turned about like 15, 16, I discovered that people were doing voice acting online as a hobby. And I was like, that is so cool. And I always felt kind of alienated as the kid who could pick out voice actors from like his favorite shows. I'd spend like hours going on Wikipedia and just going down the rabbit hole, being like, oh, wait, Yuri Lowenthal was in this show and in this show and he was in this show. Oh my god! And then Troy Baker was in this anime and then he was in this video game and he played this video game character and he did this back in the day. I remember watching that. So I was that kind of guy
Mm-hmm.
when I was younger. So as I started to delve into things online, which I kind of owe to Alejandro Saab because I discovered him when I was in high school and saw what he was doing online. And I was like, I want to do that too.
Mm-hmm.
And shortly after getting into it, I kind of started to steal my resolve a little bit. I was like, I really want to do this as a career, not just as a hobby. I want to pursue this as a career. And I kind of spun my exact reason why into being that I wanted to do what a lot of the established older generation of voice actors, or rather like the first big generation of the modern era of voice acting did for me growing up. Give me means to kind of distract myself from a lot of the struggles that I had in my life because I
Mm-hmm.
didn't have the best childhood. So I ended up playing a lot of video games, watching a lot of anime to help distract myself and kind of to help give me the life lessons I wasn't getting. So I want to do the same thing to other people that was done to me, being able to just have an impact of some kind on somebody's life while doing something that I love.
Oh,
And now I'm doing it. I'm just a guy who gets to do his dream job, and I'm just couldn't be happier.
that is awesome. That's awesome to hear. And did you initially like from your like when you knew like how like did you say like high school or so around when you decided to start going serious into it? And
Mhm.
from there, like did you do from high school and jump right into it immediately, or did you go go to like colleges, any kind of college or anything like that to kind of,
So I was pretty much self-taught for a while because I went to a math, science, and engineering school because
Mm.
my dad was like, "Hey, you're going to a smart school because you're not getting into the art school." When I was graduating middle school, and I was like, "Okay, Dad." Um, but I did go to college. Thankfully, when you start off online, you can kind of do things at your own pace because there's so
Hmm.
many different fan projects. There's so many smaller indie budget projects that you can audition for that, like, if you have a decent enough setup, you can read for them and then, get experience through that. But I wanted practical experience. So I initially got my acting start from speech and debate because I had to learn how to care what I was talking about. So I
Right.
basically learned how to emote through there. And then I went to college for theater. I went to college for about a year and a half. I went to Palm Beach State College in Florida. Um, and they have a really great theater program there. It's very small, but it was very, very, very well worth the time I spent there. I did improv all throughout. I did theater all throughout. I was in every single production that we did while I was at the college, and it was great. I had a lot
Hmm.
of fun. And then at 20, I moved to Texas, and that was like the official start to my bigger professional career.
I love that because I mean that legitimately should like that background in general because most of the people have like they say that they got their craft from like oh they were interested in like I mean not saying it's wrong or anything but they're
Sure.
interested in like like a Broadway and stuff like that and then everything and then they were working their way up to get to that point and then they saw voice acting. But no, you legitimately were a fan of it because you were already somewhat interested in it and then you're like okay what do I need to do to get where I wanting to be, and you just start and you built yourself up that way. That's so that I mean I commend you on that. That's pretty
Thanks,
cool.
man. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just one of those cool things where it's like I decided to go into a very specialized industry from the get-go when it comes to acting, since especially when I wanted to mostly work in anime and at the start, like learning how to do ADR, especially really early on, is not an easy process because ADR isn't that easy, especially for people who, like are used to doing Broadway or theater or anything but like ADR. So
Hmm.
it's not easy by any means. Thankfully, we have it a little bit easier when we work on anime because sometimes the mouth flaps aren't as complicated as like human flaps when like say when you look at the Lord of the Rings trilogy and you learn that 90% of that movie is ADR'd in because they filmed it all out in the open in New Zealand and the majority of that audio cannot be used.
All the wind and the crazy. Yeah, I can easily.
Yeah,
I'm like,
and
yeah.
it's so crazy to think that, like, 90% of the audio you hear in that movie was ADR'd, so the actors had to act over themselves a second time,
Hmm.
and they still got amazing performances out of it. That's the
Oh
crazy
god,
thing.
yeah. It's like what was it? What was it? The Wolverine? No, it
Yeah, it
was
was
it
for
Wolf?
Logan. It
Yeah,
was
for
for Logan.
Logan when they showed Hugh Jackman going like crazy inside the booth, and they were like people were wondering why. It's like oh, it's probably because it was just bad. You couldn't use the audio when he's actively running and he's hit outside in the forest and stuff and all this nature and everything. But no, you're totally right. You're totally right. ADR is I think it's a really underrated like form itself with that in itself in the process. But no, I totally understand.
Mhm.
uh oh, I'm sorry. What were you gonna say?
No, no, it's fine.
Oh,
I was just
okay.
agreeing with you.
Oh, okay. And were you generally in like you were saying before earlier, but a little more into it, but were you generally in the anime gaming scene before like having a career in voice acting? And if so, like what kind of shows and games were your natural go-to?
So, I was very much into it.
Hmm.
One of my favorite shows of all time that I watched when I was in middle school is Gurren Lagann, and it was specifically the dub for Gurren Lagann. That show is my favorite piece of anime media, and arguably one of my favorite pieces of media to ever exist. And I do a yearly rewatch of that every single year, and I still cry
Wow.
my eyes out every single time because I love that show so much. It's so inspirational to me, and the performances in there just continue to like leave me in awe
Hmm.
for a show that is like going on 15 years old now, which is insane. But in terms of games, I am a huge JRPG nerd, so I played like a lot of Final Fantasies. I play a lot of the more obscure like anime JRPGs. I've played like the Tales of franchise. I love the Tales of franchise. Um, I've kind of played a little bit of everything growing up. I mostly gravitated towards RPGs, especially the anime ones, because I loved the anime art style growing up. And I was like, I like that. Even if it's a bad video game, I like that. Um, but other specific examples, I was a huge PS2 guy. So I played a lot of PS2 games. I had, like, well over 100 because I was frankly
Oh.
addicted, and my mom fed into that addiction. Um, but, like,
Uh,
game like Rogue Galaxy, which is done by Level 5,
mhm.
fantastic game.
Great, very good.
Um, I played a decent chunk of Anime Fighters, even though I sucked at them.
Mhm.
I played some of the BlazBlue games, but I never really got into them. I played, like, Persona. I played Persona 4, Persona 3, the Persona 4 Arena games,
Oh,
all
man.
those. Yeah, I love Persona, still to this day. Kingdom Hearts, it's my favorite game series of all
Mhm.
time.
Mhm.
I would if I had it out, I'd show it to you. I just bought, a watch from the anniversary collection, because I love it so much.
Wow. Did the what's it called? Like with Gurren Lagann itself, because like I remember I mean like that it was funny because like I like Gurren Lagann as well. The that pace is very interesting because it was like what was it 26 episodes? I think it's 26 episodes.
26 or 27, one of the
Yeah,
2.
yeah, a good bit. Like it was literally three different story arcs, 8 episode each. Like the way pacing was in that, it's one of my favorite like examples to kind of go to because they didn't mess around. It was yeah, so yeah, Gurren Lagann is definitely one of my top five there. Have you ever tried an RPG called Trails of Cold Steel?
Oh, yes, I have. I actually really like the Cold Steel series. I have fallen so far behind. I am on a third of the way through
Mhm.
3, and I just have not touched it since. So I need to either restart it or pick it back up and pray to God I remember everything, 'cause, I know Trails into Reverie is coming out later this
Mhm.
year, and
Mhm.
I'm really excited for that. And,
Yeah.
I need to get back into it because I loved the first Trails of Cold Steel. I loved the second one even
Mhm.
better, and the
Mhm.
third one so far has been good. But the Trails series always has this thing um, where the first game is always just set up, so it's
Yeah.
good, but it's so much like lower stakes until the very end, and then the sequel is like, oh, nothing but stakes. All the cool stuff's happening. Um, I was talking to one of my friends, Brendan Blaber, aka Jello Apocalypse, and he's also played the games before, and that's basically his one gripe. It's like, yeah, the first game usually sucks, but then the second game is amazing because the
Mhm.
first game is like always going to be better. The first game is just set up, and like
Yeah.
nothing really important happens until the second game in like the two duologies.
Oh my god, like when I played the first game, I'm like I mean, I the best way to describe the first game is a 40-hour prologue. But like it was like, okay, I did all the work and then you go to the very end and you're like, "Whoa, there's mechs in this?" And then
Yeah, dude, like that's the cool thing. It's like it's just
you
basically
can't
like Persona JRPG, like traditional JRPG, like hybrid. Um, and it's like you're there for the gameplay because it's such a different style of gameplay. Like it's
Mhm.
this minimal changes they put on it it just make a huge difference. And then it's like, okay, there's some bigger stuff going on. Cool. It's just fun school shenanigans. We're exploring the world. They're learning about stuff. There's some cute
Mhm.
moral lessons here. And then it's like, oh, stuff's starting to hit the fan. Oh, wow. Where did this giant mech come from? Wait, why does the main character have weird powers now? What? And then had to wait so long for the sequel. And then the
Mhm.
sequel comes out, and you're like, I'm in deep.
It's
And
so
I
funny.
Yeah, the thing is too, the sequel did this one thing. It's a very small thing that I appreciated the heck out of. They started you at level 50 when you started that game.
Yes,
It's like
yes.
they fully acknowledge that, yeah, you're not starting off at level 1 again. No, you're starting off at level 50 and you're gonna
Yes.
just go up to like level 80 to 90 over the course of the game.
You know, when I think
It's
about it though, too, that they've never really like I mean the main crew, Team Seven or whatever, they never went back down to team like to level one. Like they've always been ratioed up because in the third one it's the next generation,
Mhm.
and yet you started from one, but your character Reen is starting at level 25 or 30 or whatever, and then so on and so forth.
I
And so
think
it's ramping
I
up.
still think Green starts at level 1, if not a little bit higher than, like, his students,
Mm.
just because, he's kinda nerfed because he's gotten weaker as time's gone on,
Oh yeah.
because of plot reasons, but, like,
Hmm.
all of his friends are, like, their levels are ratioed to be lower, but they're still,
Yeah.
for all intents and purposes, their kit is stronger than the majority of the people that, like, you'll get into your class.
Yeah.
But regardless,
Hmm.
yeah, I'm really excited to finish up 3 because there's some plot threads in 3 that I was really vibing with. And I'm like, the 4th game's coming out, and that's when, like, the crossover stuff really, really starts to come in, and I'm like,
Yep. I can't wait too because like I'm actually stuck where you're at too. I'm at three. I've been stuck at three for like 2 years, and I've been like
Mhm.
I'm like, oh, I'm gonna get back into it. Then I decided to play nostalgia. I started playing Ease 8, and
Oh, yeah.
love that game. Eases are really underrated games, but these games, the game is really good. And then I was like, oh, okay, I'm done. And then Final Fantasy 7 remake came out, and then I don't even
Yep.
remember.
That's the killer.
Yeah, yeah. So before your career, were you also in the con scene as well? Like were what did you ever go out to different kinds of places and check it
Just
out?
I was kind of, like, in and out of the con scene. I wasn't super into it. I didn't go to my first con until I was, like, 16, 17.
Hmm.
Um And that was when I lived in Florida, so I went to Florida's biggest convention, MegaCon, for my first
Oh
con.
God, that's a lot.
Y Yeah, and MegaCon is, like, a huge, like, multicultural like, multi-fandom con, so,
Hmm.
like, especially back in, like, when I went, which was, like, 2014, 2015-ish, it was, like, 2014, that was when The Walking Dead was at its peak
Hmm.
of, like, popularity, so they had all the Walking Dead actors, they had, like, a lot of, like, pop culture actors, they had the late great Jason David Frank there too, um, they had a couple of anime voice actors here and there, I think I didn't even see most of the anime voice actors because there was just so many guests and the con was so
Hmm.
huge that I didn't go to see as many, um, but that was my first con, and then I didn't go to too many growing up,
Hmm.
I went to a smaller first year con that was also in Florida, that was in Orlando called Omni Expo that I'm not sure if it's still running or not. I think it is.
Hmm.
But that was shortly after the Attack on Titan dub was announced. So they made it Attack on Titan Con where they had every single actor that was in Attack on Titan at the time there at the con, basically. With the
Hmm.
exception, I think, of like Ashley Birch, who had to call out for like some work obligations.
I forget that
Um,
she was a part of that, like every time.
yeah, she was originally Sasha and then just, couldn't reprise due to being busy and other stuff and
Hmm.
scheduling conflicts, I assume. Um, but uh but yeah, and that was my second con and then I didn't go to a con for a long, long time.
Hmm.
And then I think the last con I went to before I moved to Texas was a con in Texas. It's called Anime Fest. It's one of
Hmm.
my personal favorite conventions. It is a really good, busy, medium-sized convention that's held in Dallas. And I love how it's run. It is a like total nonprofit anime convention. It's great. So the showrunners make no money off of it. It's 401c, all that stuff.
Wow.
Um, yeah, it's great. I love the people who run it. I'm friends with a lot of them now. And I loved it so much that actually when I volunteered at it
Mm.
for like 2 years, I
Very nice.
volunteered on the guest handling side of things. So I helped out in 2018 as a guest handler, and then I helped out in 2019 when Game Fest was introduced.
Mm.
Um, and yeah, it was great. I loved Anime Fest so much. And then the last con that I went to as like an attendee before I was like, hey, I really shouldn't be going to cons too much anymore because my career is starting to build up.
Mm.
Was IkiCon in Houston in
Mm.
2019 as well.
Wow, wait, that's still there? Wow, I thought that disappeared a long time ago.
No, I think I think it recently switched locations where it's
Uh-huh.
held. I'm not sure if it's at the same hotel in Houston, but
Mhm.
it still happens. It still happens.
Wow, okay, that's pretty cool. Man, everyone's told me to go try check out Anime Fest. The only convention I've really been in cuz I don't usually go out to a lot of anime cons anymore either. But
Mhm.
the biggest one was Acon, and then San Japan, I believe. I think it
Yeah,
was
San
called San
Japan is a good
Japan.
one too. It's a pretty
Yeah.
big one. Yeah, Akon's pretty big too.
Mhm.
I know like over like the last like 5ish years or so, they've kind of had some like ownership like
I don't know
switches.
what is happening with the
I don't
Acon
know
stuff
either.
either. Yeah, because but it
I
was
don't.
but it's
It's
weird, like
like
location wise. They're like, "Hey, we're going to put it in the fairgrounds." It's like, what? Why? It's
yeah,
like,
that was a weird year. That was after they first switched ownership. That was a very, 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 very weird year. I got
uh-huh.
sunburned the year. Oh, yeah, I went to Acon just to see some friends that year
Mm-hmm.
because I got in for free. And that was a very weird con scene to be at. Weird con venue. I got sunburnt like there was no tomorrow because it was in the middle of summer. I wore a
Hmm.
tank top. Not fun. Not
Yeah,
fun.
I was doing interviews and I had to cancel because I was drenched in sweat because of the
Mhm.
humidity. It was like, what? It's like, why would you have it in so many different locations and then yet, like, I was like, nah, I'm not gonna come out when I'm all like perspirated and stuff, but it was crazy. But yeah,
Mhm.
but it's better. It's not at the fairgrounds anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, there you go. Oh wow, I didn't finish this up, but one of the most like extra sports animes that I've ever seen is Prince of Tennis, because I love, like, I mean, with the amount of anime you've watched, like one of the best kind of animes are sports animes, because they are incredibly extra, on whatever
Yeah.
they do. And I believe Prince of Tennis has been around forever. So
Been
like
around for a minute, like 20
yeah.
plus years at this point.
Yeah, yeah. So like when you got the role as the prodigy, I can never remember, Ryoma Echizen, I believe.
Mhm.
Yeah, like just like what did you like were you aware, or did you know the character himself already, or did you like how did what was your feeling when you got that role?
So it was a very interesting experience because The Prince of Tennis is an example of a show that I remember watching on Toonami Jetstream when I was younger. When Toonami
Mm-hmm.
Jetstream was a thing,
Mm-hmm.
back when Viz tried to dub it. And I remember watching very select episodes, only a couple here and there, because I was like, tennis anime. That sounds lame as a kid
Mm-hmm.
because it's tennis. Who cares about tennis? Apparently I should, because now I'm in it. But I remember, I auditioned and I was like, I don't really know if I'll book him or not. He needs to sound cool, and I don't really sound cool, and I wasn't like as experienced when I auditioned as I am now.
Mm-hmm.
And so I remember Howard Wong, the director, like one of the lead writers, script supervisor, et cetera, for the show and for the project. He called me. He's like, "Hey man, can I call you real quick? Nothing bad. I just want to call you." And I was like, "Sure." And my heart's beating out of my chest. I'm like, did I screw up? What did I do? What did I do? And then he's like, "Hey man, he called me to tell me that he wanted me as Ryoma." And I was like, "Oh," and I'm like on the phone, I'm not freaking out.
Mm-hmm.
But I was like, and I was working at my computer, and I was like, "Yeah, yeah, no, I'm totally down, man. Thank you so much. Yeah, yeah, this could be awesome. Really excited." And he was like, "Yeah, expect to get reached out to about booking and then like within the week." And I was like, "Cool." And then immediately afterwards, I like jumped out of my chair and I was like, "Let's go!" Because it's just so cool, like, that's, like, to audition for the face of a long-standing series and to become the face of that long-standing series is so cool.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's so, so cool, but, I've come to love Prince of Tennis a lot, for all of its eccentricities and how wacky it gets. We had a very interesting way of going about Prince of Tennis when it came to dubbing it, though, because we actually started with the Prince of Tennis 2, the sequel series,
Mm-hmm.
did all of that, and then we went back and started working on the
You retro
original show.
Oh, you retrograded? Y'all
Yeah,
went backwards and did all of it? I didn't know y'all did the first part either. Wow.
yeah, no, we've done a good chunk with the first part so far. So we did the first 30 episodes, which includes OVAs of the origin of Prince of Tennis 2. Then we got sent back to start at episode 51 because I don't believe Crunchyroll had gotten the license to episodes 1 through 50 yet.
Mhm.
And we were told to start doing episodes from the original series in batches, from episode 51 up to a certain point. And then once we got to that certain point, like, "Hey, we want you to go back and do 1 through 50." And we're like, "Okay." So we double retrograded. So we started halfway through the show,
Mhm.
basically, and then got to a certain point, then went back to the beginning and caught up to ourselves, and then we were able to start picking back up where we left off before. Um,
That's
but,
impressive.
yeah, so we had to start where all these characters already had their development, and, like, we're going through new development to then go back to them mid-development and then go back to the very beginning. Um But, well, Prince of Tennis does have, like, its really extra moments because of the framing, and they make every move seem extra, like,
Mhm.
dramatic and stuff like that. It's genuinely pretty fun because, especially for me, I don't really get to play cool characters like Ryoma, so, as I've, like, been working on the show, which we've been working on Prince of Tennis for as franchise for, like, 2 years straight almost at this point,
You're
which
still
is so weird to
actively
say.
Yeah, you're still actively working on this as well? Like, are y'all almost done, or where y'all at right
I
now?
I I know how much I'm allowed to say, but, like, we're still
Oh,
working on it.
yeah, I don't want yeah, I don't wanna get to the position where it's like,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, that's cool.
Um
Wow.
Yeah, but, we've been hard the grind, and, like, it's insane because like, the amount of work we've done in 2 years is kinda freaking insane. And
Mhm.
I know there's still more, and there's the potential for more to come because we had a new season, this past summer, which we doubled up on. We were working on the original show and that at the same time,
My God.
which is crazy. So we were simul-dubbing the new show while also working on the old series. But there's a lot of heart into Prince of Tennis,
Yeah.
amid like, underneath all the extra, like, tennis mumbo jumbo and BS, um, which I feel like a lot of, like, sports anime kinda take inspiration from, like, Haikyuu's a really good example where it's, like, all about camaraderie and, like, a lot of good relationships with the sport and within your team and teamwork and stuff like that. Prince of Tennis kinda has that too, I think just, on a different sort of level. So, but
Mhm.
I like to say Princess Edge just has a lot of heart to it, and there's like nice smaller stories to be told as well, and it's all about like the relationships between the characters and how they choose to grow within tennis and how that affects their character too.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and it's just, it's great, and there's like, this is kinda like a small spoiler, but it's already been kinda told to me and stuff like that. Like, ultimately, like, the best way to have fun, not just to have fun, to play tennis in Prince of Tennis lore is to have fun with it. And that's basically when you understand and admit that tennis is fun and you're playing tennis to have fun versus just to win. That's when you unlock Tennis Ultra Instinct. Basically.
Uh,
That doesn't happen until the very, very end of the original series in, like, the Nationals OVAs when Ryoma's at the finals of Nationals in his final match, but he
mhm.
understands that, like, have playing tennis is fun, and then he unlocks the pinnacle of mastery, which is basically and, like, Tennis Ultra Instinct, where just gets super overpowered, but it's really cool
I
moment.
I just love that it took them 50 episodes to be like, "You know what? Just admit that it's fun." And then
No,
it's like,
not even 50 episodes. It takes well over 100.
"Oh
It
my
takes over, like,
God."
150 to get like, Nationals are OVAs, and the original show
Oh,
goes up to, like,
wow, you're right.
episode 178.
God,
So
it's that big? I thought it was like I
yeah.
thought it stopped at 105, like 100. Holy crap.
No, no, no. The canon stuff ends at episode 128, if I remember correctly, and then it
Uh-huh.
pulls an OG Naruto where it has, like, 50 episodes of filler that literally
Ooh.
does not matter, and then they went back and started doing OVAs for the rest of the canon stuff.
Oh, okay. Wow, so they made
Mhm.
stuff up. They made 50 something episodes of they making stuff up. Ooh, I hate when
Yeah,
they
and
do
it's not
that.
like OG Naruto filler where some of that filler was actually pretty good.
Mhm.
It's just stupid apparently from what I've been told, but I'm pretty much experiencing, excuse me, Prince of Tennis as we've been working on it. So
Mhm.
that's my one thing.
Oh,
So
that's
I don't really watch ahead too much unless I have to.
that makes sense. That makes sense. And like I'm kind of go backwards a little bit because I know this wasn't your first like, main protagonist
Mhm.
role. Like your first one was you played the main protagonist Rito Yuki in the Two Love You or Two Love Ru. I hate that series name. I hate it so much every time. Yeah. So like what was I mean prior to like you getting it, this was legitimately your first time getting the protagonist role, all of it. So I just kind of wanted to know, like, what was your feeling when you got the lead role for the first time?
So it was really, really cool, because, I remember when I auditioned for David Wald, the director of the first season, was like, "I want you, and I'm gonna make sure that you get this. This audition is a glorified formality because I want you, and I'm gonna make sure that you get this."
Nice.
Um, so that was really sweet of him to say. And I auditioned, and I was just like, "Cool." I was like, he directed my audition because that's just how it was supposed to go.
Mhm.
And we sent it off, and I was like, he wants me for it. That's really, really cool. If it happens, it happens, it happens. And then I got the booking email. I got an email from him. He's like, hey, it's official. You're him. And I woke up to that email, and I literally jumped out of my bed and I did push-ups. I had so much energy. I did like 10 push-ups, then jumped up and I ran around my apartment because I was so excited. It's my
Yeah.
first like huge series lead. I'd voiced like one lead character prior in a small OVA called This Boy Suffers from Crystallization, but like
Mhm.
I had not been like a series lead um like for a
In a
26
series.
episode
Yeah.
series, and let alone like one that I knew had multiple seasons. So I was so excited, but I was still very green because that happened a year and a half into me living in Texas.
Mhm.
So I booked that like pretty sure like beginning of Texas-ish.
Mhm.
Um and And then, shortly afterwards, unfortunately, my dad passed away right as I was getting ready to go ahead and go to Houston to record everything.
Oh no,
Um,
I'm
and,
sorry.
it's okay, it happened.
Mhm.
I was kinda put in the situation like, "Well, do I push this back? Do I go and do it?" And, David Wald, God bless that man's heart, I love him so much. He checked in with me and was just like, "Hey, Rito can wait." And I was like, "No, I think I should come down. It'll be good for me." And so I went down. It was a very healthy experience. David Wald is a fantastic director, and he made a lot of made took the time to make sure there were a lot of teaching moments for me. So sorry, my cat's trying to jump up on my chair too. There were a lot of
Love.
teaching moments because I was still so green. But
Mhm.
working on that show with him, we basically had the time of our lives. We would take like laughing breaks
Mhm.
because of just the insane stuff that we would say. We kind of hammed up and made the script a lot funnier as we were going on too. Not to say that it wasn't funny from the get go, but it's like we
Mhm.
just saw some things like we got to take this. We're gonna take this.
I mean,
And the first season's
when you're
go again. Sorry.
oh, sorry, yeah, no, sorry, my bad. But like, if when you're reenacting something, when you're virtually creating a script of the translations, you could fit something in a thing or two
Oh
inside
yeah,
something like
especially
that.
when you're in the booth recording. It's just you see things, you come up with ideas like, let's do this. And then we do it. But that first season's kinda like more in line with a traditional, like, ecchi harem compared
Mhm.
to the rest of the franchise. And there's a lot more of, like, heart to the first season because it's just a giant allegory for puberty, I
Mhm.
like to say. But like I said, we would take laughing breaks. David Wald would take the time to, like, teach me things while we were doing things, and Sentai dubs differently, so we kinda, with Sentai does just the chase method where there's no beeps. You just wait a beat after like the Japanese starts going, and then you start acting,
Mhm.
and then they'll like line things up after the fact. Um, and then you go back review, and then you adjust as needed. But he was like slowly but surely was getting me integrated into everything. I was just learning a whole lot. I was having to learn how to scream on a consistent basis. Um, because Rito is crazy.
Yes, he is.
Um, but, uh but yeah, so, that show holds a very special place in my heart too, just because it was such a great time, great experience with David Wald, um, and yeah, I loved working on that show so much.
That's
It
awesome.
was it was a sh Oh,
Did
good,
you do?
sorry.
Oh, did you do all of the all of it, like all of the
We
series?
We did everything
Oh
except for the
god.
OVAs. We did the entire show. We did Moto 2 Love-Ru, we did Darkness and Darkness 2. We did everything.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and it's all available to purchase on Blu-ray and or stream on High Dive with, I think, the exception of Darkness 2. I could be mistaken though.
Mhm.
But yeah, we did everything. David Wald unfortunately left Sentai after the first season. So
Mhm.
the rest of the shows the rest of the season, not seasons, seasons rather, fell to the other director on the project, John Swayze, and John
Oh,
took
okay.
yeah, and he was directing the rest of it, and it was still fun. It was still fun,
Mhm.
outside of the moments where I saw like the popsicle scene and I freaked the hell out, because I wasn't prepped for it mentally.
See, I have no idea because I've only saw the first series, but like I'm actually kind of
Good,
worried to even
good,
ask.
good. No, good. Stay innocent. Stay innocent. The first season's my favorite. I think it's the best. Watch that one. And unless you're super down bad or you like laughing at really absurd harem situations, don't watch past the first season.
How close are we to like? I mean, are we talking about borderline hentai
Uh,
level or what?
it gets there. It gets there.
Or
It
high
gets
school D&D
there.
kind of and more? Or
Yeah, it's kind of like High School DxD a little bit.
oh
Yeah,
no.
uh, just take my word for it. Like, we had fun where we could, but they
Hmm.
bring the horny levels up, like, from, like, a 6 that was in the first
Hmm.
show to, like, a 15, starting with
Wow.
Darkness. Moto
Aren't
2
they?
Love-Ru's Moto 2 Love-Ru is, like, more of, like, a clip show, a
Uh-huh.
glorified clip show, and like, ants brings the ante up to, like, an 8 or 9, but then, like, when you get to Darkness proper, when it's, like, full episode plot lines,
Hmm.
that's when it gets to be, like, the
Like,
absurd levels of horny. Like,
oh
"Oh my
no.
god, I can't believe you're in this position." Then there's some very specific examples because I rewatched some of it recently for the first time, and I was like, "Oh god." Oh god. Yeah, like, let's just say there's a little too much spreading, and that's all I'm gonna say.
Dear Lord. Wait,
They
they're in
don't
middle
show
school,
anything
right?
below the belt. They're in high school.
Oh, thank God.
Yeah, they don't show anything below the belt. They
I mean,
imply what's below the belt, and it's, like, some of the actions they show, but I'm like, "Poor Rito." Actually, poor Rito. This boy cannot catch a break.
oh my God. Okay, this is that is crazy, and yeah, I probably will
Yeah.
not at that point. Jesus. And like out of all the characters that you've played, is there one that you could relate to, like one that you could say, yeah, that's me.
Rito, when in the first season, I was able to throw like a lot of me in there because just because I related a lot to like his sort of like struggle of dealing with all these conflicting emotions. Like yeah, he kind of has the stupid anime protagonist strife of like, do I like this girl? Do I like this girl? Do I like this girl or that girl?
Hmm.
But like again, I like to see the first season of To Love Ru is really something special. It's like a giant allegory for puberty, similar to how Fooly Cooly is like a huge nothing but allegory for
Yeah,
puberty being freaking weird
right
and
in your face.
crazy, and like you just don't know how to process it. Um, but if I had to choose one specific character, that I really was able to put a lot of myself into. Honestly, my character in a show called Ame More at the Borderline, Amo Shiba, he's like he sits like most naturally in my regular speaking voice,
Hmm.
and like he kind of like was I was able to throw a lot of myself into him because there's a lot of moments, a lot of like really nice downplayed moments where it's like I related to a lot heavily. There's a moment in episode 2 where he technically becomes like an outlaw because of one thing he does in episode 1. And then he ends up finding an older couple, helps them out, and they say, "Hey, you can stay here with us." And he just starts breaking down because he's been an orphan for the majority of his life, and like
Mm.
some like he was offered a place to stay, and that really hit a personal spot at home in my heart. Um, and there's a lot of moments like that in that show that I really, really appreciated. I got to really act in that show, as I
Hmm.
like to say. Like I got to like I he has Amo has such a breadth of like emotions that he experiences, and like has a really cool character arc throughout the first season, and then like kind of gets back to that same place in the second chunk of the show. Um, but I really liked working on that show. Working with Griffin Poitou was really really fun because he had a very specific vision in mind, and we were able to just collaborate, and we had a lot of fun with it. And then
What's
another show was Skate, obviously. Not to a
Mhm.
lesser extent, but I related more so to Mia on like a much more intrinsic level. Because looking at his arc as a whole and like his character, you really kind of see a lot of like smaller details that they don't put to the forefront. He plays games because he's really good at one thing. He started losing his friends. He doesn't have any friends because he's good at this one thing.
Mhm.
He kind of like shuts people out because like he's been hurt before, and he's just a 12-year-old kid, or like 12, 13-year-old kid. And it's like I relate so heavily to that because of your interest and you're good at your interest.
Yeah.
Um, and then he just slowly kind of finds his found family, and life starts getting better slowly but surely. And he's just growing up ever so slightly, learning to be a kid again versus having to
Mhm.
be like, like this like skating prodigy who has to like present a lot more mature and skilled than like his peers and even
Right.
people older than him.
No, I totally agree with that. I mean, agree with skate. It's kind of funny because I was actually, well, I think that was one of my questions because, like, I've talked to a lot of different people who were like, who were in skate, like Jonah Scott and them, and then like they have said that like that's one of like the best like favorite projects to work on, and I've been so wondering like what is it like in your words too, because like I wanted to know like what made skate such a special series to work on.
Uh, that show was really just lightning in a bottle. We didn't since it's anime original, we had no idea how it was going to turn out.
Hmm.
We were really excited for it because it's the skateboarding anime, the only one, which is so cool. Um, and I remember Mia wasn't even on the audition sides, and so I read for like Reki and I think like Longa, and
Hmm.
I was like, if I get in this show, cool. And then I got cast as Mia, and I'd not watched the show
Hmm.
prior. Um, so I got booked for episode 2, and they booked me for the trailer that they had us dub, and then they also they had me in episode 2, and they hadn't told me about the trailer, so I assumed I was just doing, like, bit characters and stuff like that.
Mhm.
But then after I recorded episode 2, I was like, "Okay, cool. I'm in this show. Let me actually watch an episode." So I watched the most recent episode having no context to literally anything beforehand, with the exception of episode 2. I watched episode 4 and I was like, "This is really good." And I was like, "Crap, this is really good." And so I went to record episode 3, which I'd just skipped over, and then I saw the insanity that was going on in that show.
Mhm.
With, the skating and, like, how the animation was stellar, the music was fantastic, and now in episode 3 is, like, Mia's big, like, his episode. It's, like,
Mhm.
his proper introduction, he gets to have, like, he gets to have his his beef with Longa, and there's so much cool stuff there going on. It's like, "Dude, it's so cool." And then Longa does this really cool thing where, like, because his skateboard has, like, swivel so it can move like a snowboard, he's able to bridge a gap by, like, swinging the entire board over, and it's so cool. And I literally screamed in my booth, "That's so cool! What the hell?"
You know,
During
actually,
the preview.
yeah, like,
Um,
but like when you're actually in the booth, I guess the level of context of what you're talking about, it doesn't really click until you see it all together. Or you're just worried about your
yeah.
character until then, right?
Yeah, for the most part. Thankfully, since this is such a big ensemble show, like when all the characters are together, usually you're given a lot more context to it. And
Hmm.
after I watched episode 4, I started watching it weekly. I was watching the dub as it was releasing, and I started watching the sub as it was releasing because dude, when I tell you I got hooked. The 4th episode got me real good, and then it continued to get better and better. That show, we had such a great experience working with our directors, Chris Wakehamp and Kyle Phillips. The script was fantastic. We were also
Hmm.
able to, like, really inject a lot of ourselves into the show, and we were able to really kinda, like, continue to, like, increase the, I guess, like, the more subtle, like, gay tones, and we kinda made the dub a lot more gay, which
Yeah.
was great, which I loved, that show
Yeah.
just was so much fun to work on. And when it comes to anime original stuff, you don't know if it's gonna be good, you don't know if it's gonna be bad, you don't know if it's just gonna be okay, and that show was truly good all throughout. We have probably one of my favorite episodes of a show I've ever worked on, episode 6 of that show, which is the Cannon Beach episode, where I
Oh.
get to call Jonah Scott daddy, in a very high-pitched voice.
And that's
It
where it all started.
Yeah, we were I remember Jonah messaged me, he's like, "Dude, have you seen the new episode of Skate? You have to call me daddy." And I'm like, "What? I haven't watched it yet. Let me go watch it right now." And I was, like, laughing my ass off the entire time. But yeah, there's just so many factors that went into Skate. The script was great. The cast was, I think, objectively perfect across the
Hmm.
board. And there was so much heart and soul. Everybody was put in the right place. And that's both a biased and unbiased opinion as a fan of the dub and somebody who worked on the dub. Separating those 2, my opinion is still the same, like, with the exception of trying to be like, "Oh, yes, I was perfect for the role," because there could have been somebody who could have possibly been better for the role, I don't know.
Hmm.
Um, I think the show was cast phenomenally, which helps significantly with
Big
making
time.
a really good product. And, yeah, like I said, that show is just lightning in a bottle, and now we got an OVA and a 2nd season coming eventually, which we're all so excited about. And it's just so weird to think that I did Skate the Infinity 2 years ago. We were working on it 2 years ago, and so much has changed, and, like, I'm just like, "Oh, this is so cool, so cool."
Uh, Is that
It
you said it was a Crunchyroll? Was that Crunchyroll original? I didn't know that. I didn't know that
No,
was.
it was Funimation because that was before
Oh,
the merger. Yeah,
okay.
so it was Funimation, and then it got put up on Crunchyroll as one of their first dubs when after the merger happened.
Oh, okay, man. Because
Mhm.
yeah, it sounded like it sounded like y'all enjoyed each other's company. Did y'all do the dubs to get like how like
No,
or y'all
it
did
was
it
still the
individual?
pandemic. Yeah,
Oh,
we
okay.
did it individual, because it
Hmm.
was still the pandemic.
Hmm.
I just finished my good booth setup when I lived in Texas,
Hmm.
and, it was awesome. It was really cool to be able to, like, record everything remotely, because again, still thick of the pandemic, and, there was very select in-studio recordings at Funimation. They had a procedure, which is really good and everything,
Hmm.
but because also the the skate dub was kinda cherry-picked from, like, both actors from both LA and Texas and, like, in other areas to, like, meld together to make this really solid cast. It's really cool.
Yeah.
But usually whenever we record anime, unless you're doing, like, a lot like the background voices and cues,
Hmm.
which is, like, that's the only time you'll record in groups. You'll only ever record, together, unlike Western media.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
usually anime, we always record independently.
Oh, I did not know that. So mostly it's like it's to your they focus on the individually as opposed to group. Okay, that makes sense. In a way, it does
Yeah.
make sense because you're re-recording over a media that already exists
Yeah, and
into it.
sometimes there's so many overlapping cues and stuff like that that it's
Hmm.
kinda hard to manage those sessions when it comes to, like, working on cartoons and, like, some video games, depending on the video game, recording together if you want that organic sort of experience
Hmm.
and that organic read works, especially on cartoons because like, they're going to animate to the actors' performances. Meanwhile, with anime, everything's already been animated, everything's already been done. We're a
Hmm.
post-production process. We're creating the English language version for basically accessibility,
Yes.
which is just, dubs have just spiraled into being more than just an accessibility option at this point, which is pretty insane to think. Um, but yeah, whenever we record anime, there's only been one instance that I know of that was done with David Wald because that man's a madman and I love him.
Hmm.
Where he was working, I think Hitoriji My Hero down in Houston, and he actually had some of the actors record scenes together.
Hmm.
But because like so many overlapping things can happen, whether it's like small gasps or reactions or people talking over each other. Usually, recording together is more chaos when it comes
Yeah.
to anime. So it's better
Hmm.
to just handle it one on one. It's a little bit more efficient too, because that way you can take
Hmm.
the time to focus on one actor and their scenes. Because sometimes you also have just very like character heavy shows where it's not like big group things, it's just one on one interactions.
Hmm.
So, and then there's the big fight scenes and stuff like that too, where you'll wanna fine tune some things. So it's like, instead of having the cherry pick like, "Hey, actor A, you did great. Let's do this, this, that on these cues. Actor B, let's do this, this on these cues." It's less like mental gymnastics for the director as well as the
Yeah.
actor, so you don't get direction confused.
That definitely makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. So, well, no, but that's great. No, I love. No, I loved it. I didn't even know there was going to be a second season of Skate of the Infinity. I thought since
We
it's
didn't
been two
either.
years. Yeah.
We did
So that's.
either. It was last year. They had a big event in Okinawa, which is where the show like kind of takes place.
Hmm.
Um, and it was they announced the OVA, which we were like because they announced a project, a skate project, an animation project, which we didn't know
Hmm.
what it was. We
Hmm.
were we every with the fan base and even the actors were like, okay, it could be an OVA, it could be a movie, it could be a second season. What would we want it to be? Or like Johnny Tsunami, but snowboarding if it's a movie. Um, we if it's an OVA, we don't know what, but if a second season, ooh, ooh, ooh. So we were just kind of like freaking out because we're like, we know that there's more coming, we just don't know when. So a year goes by, nothing. Year and a half, last summer, they have this whole event, Skate Season 2 and OVA were announced in the same live stream and the same at the
Wow.
same event, and we freaked the hell out because we were like, we got what we wanted and then some, let's go.
That is
So
so great.
yeah,
Oh
it's
man.
that's one of my favorite things that I got so excited I've never gotten more excited about a show getting a second season and an OVA, I think, in a long time, especially for something that I've been in since Skate. 'Cause, there's
Oh
just something special about Skate. The fandom's great, the show's fantastic all across the board. It's just mwah, 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 mwah,
yeah.
mwah.
It's actually kind of funny because like I don't even know what it was about Skate itself that kind of pulled me into it because I don't usually watch Skate. Like I mean, played like the last Skate thing I ever did was Tony Hawk on
Mhm.
my PS2 like back in the day in college. But but when I saw this one, I was like, oh, I'm kind of interested. I'm kind of interested because like I said, it kind of goes back to sports animes and stuff in general, do some extra stuff and those kind of things like all the time. And I thought this was something about it was kind of special. When I watched it, I was like, this is freaking awesome. This is a well animated series, and then showed different kind of aspects of like of character growth that I mean you don't really see every day. I mean, since mostly now it's usually isekai kind of stuff, a lot of
Yeah.
isekai stuff, you know. But yeah, so it was very really constructed and stuff. So yeah, I definitely loved it. Definitely love it. So I can't wait till a second season. That's that's gonna
Yeah.
be nice. And
Yeah.
all right, and you like have a naturally like high pitch. And I assume it's fairly uncommon for you to play the baddie in the series. And when you played one of Don Flamingo's right hand men, Pika, you already know where this is going. Like how was your experience to that? Like, did you know did you know who Pika was before you got that role?
So, for context, whenever usually back in the day, I think they've changed it now. Whenever Funimation, now Crunchyroll, would book you for something, they wouldn't always tell you what it was for. or like
Mhm.
what specific character you were. They'd be like, "Hey, this director needs you for X amount of time on this show. Can you come in at this time or what's your availability on these dates?" So I got in a text like, "Hey, Mike McFarlane wants you for 2 hours on One Piece. Can you come in at this day on this time?" And this was like 2020, so I went into the studio and did all the COVID precautions. And I was like, "Sure, I can do that. I'm gonna have a named character in One Piece. Cool." No clue who it was gonna be. And my roommate, who was also like a big One Piece fan and a voice actor, was like, "I wonder who you could be." And I was like, "I don't know. I really don't know." And because we remembered where like Funimation had left off dubbing One Piece, which was like somewhere in Dressrosa, and I was
Yeah.
like, "There's only one character I could think of, but I don't know." And I was Dellinger, who was actually played by I believe Brandon McGinnis, a good friend of mine. And so I go into the booth, and I'm the only person in the booth. There's nobody else there. Everybody's funneled in like remotely, and
Mhm.
Mike's like, "Hey man, so we got some fun for you today. So are you familiar with One Piece?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm like mostly familiar." And he's like, "Cool, cool, cool. So I'm gonna have you be playing um this guy here. I'm not gonna pan to him just yet. We're just gonna preview, and we're just gonna you'll see what I mean." And so we preview the first cue, and then I hear Pika's Japanese voice, and I hear how high and squeaky it is, and I see him, and I'm dying of laughter. And I'm like, there's no effing way, man. There's no effing way I get to be this guy." Um, and then Mike's like, "Yup, so you're gonna be Pika. So let's we heard what he sounds like. Now let's just kind of like spitball it, and we'll see if we need to do any adjustments." And then we went through it. I did my first takes, and I believe my first one was like, "Are you sure about that?" or something like that. And
Oh, no.
then Mike was just like, "Yep, that's perfect. That's great." And so Pika recording Pika was kind of like opening up a box of chocolates. You never knew what you're gonna get inside because his some of his reactions were just great too. It's just like, which is just like so freaking funny. Um,
Oh, no.
it's great. Playing him was great. I got to play a character who gets laughed at for his voice, which is hilarious. I got to play a character who has a One Piece laugh, and people make fun of him for his laugh. And as a joke, about like, "Hey, what's wrong?"
What was the One Piece laugh that he did?
His his laugh was a "Pika pika pika da 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 da."
Oh,
And people
no.
actually made fun of him for it. Like Zoro's just like, "What the heck was that laugh?" And where he just laughs, and Pika goes like, "What's wrong? What's wrong with my laugh?" But I learned that I eventually learned secondhand that Mike wanted to like use somebody who had a naturally high pitched voice, kind of opposite what the Japanese did, where they had like this obviously like deeper voiced man pushing his voice to a really high and squeaky place, so it's like it sounds funny.
Oh, no.
Uh, and just like he was able to do it, but Mike wanted to grab somebody who had a much more naturally high pitched voice, and so he grabbed me, and it was great. And so that was like some consistent One Piece work for a while, and I was very happy about
That
it.
it's so funny though. I loved it. I was like when I heard it's like, oh, there's like did you hear the English dubbed voice of Pika? I'm like, I did not even think of it. Let me I had to find it immediately. And I'm like, this is gold. So this is great. I loved it. And my final question is your career in voice acting is it's starting to ramp up. I mean, you're still fairly new, for the most part, I would say. Like, do you have any personal goals on where your voice acting career will take you, or plans in the future?
So the big thing that I want to do more of is like video games and stuff like that because that's the medium that I arguably played and consumed just as much, if not a little bit more, than like anime. And I love working on anime, and like
Mhm.
if the opportunity ever comes, I'm still gonna work on anime because I love it. Still love working on it, for all of anime's eccentricities, and stuff like that. I still very much enjoy working on it, but games mean a lot to me, and so that's the reason why I moved to California, was to pursue more video game work.
Mhm.
Um, and so I really want to be like in a JRPG. That's my big goal because I love JRPGs so much.
Mhm.
If I could even be like in like a Tales of game, I would freak out about that because Tales of franchise is like one of my favorites. Tales of the
What's your
Abyss is my favorite.
which one?
Tales of the Abyss, it was my first, and it's
Which
my
one?
favorite.
Which one was that on? Was that on
That
the
was on the
handle?
PS2. That was
Ah,
the, second PS2 game that was released in the
uh,
States. It was Legendia, which was on PS2, which came after Symphonia, and then it was Abyss. And then after
mm.
Abyss, it jumped to the 360 with Vesperia, then it was PS3 exclusive with the rest of the
Mhm.
mainline entries going forward.
Mhm.
But I want to be in like a JRPG like that. I just want to be more games. I want to do more cool stuff. If
Mhm.
I can work on more anime, then cool. I just want to do more than just anime.
Mhm.
And again, love it to death. I love anime. I'll always still like love to work on it. But there's just some bigger stuff that I would like to try and experiment on,
Mhm.
and I'm like you said, I'm still relatively young in my career. I've been like professionally, I think for just 5 years now. I just hit
Mhm.
my 5 year anniversary. When it's like 5, 6 ish,
Mhm.
and I say this with as much objectivity as possible. I'm still in my mid 20s. I
Mhm.
just turned 25 in October, so I know I still have room to like I guess pseudo make mistakes that I could bounce back from. So, I figured why not try moving to California for a little bit, see what work I can't get, see what I can and can't do, and just
Mhm.
go from there.
I
And,
mean,
so far it's been cool. I've booked some things that I can't talk about that I'm excited about. Um, and yeah.
that's
So
cool. I liked it. I definitely like it. And just like, so what if theoretically they're like, we want you to be a character inside Kingdom Hearts, what would you say?
I
Like,
would freak the hell out, man. I would freak the hell out. Actually freak the hell out.
it's like,
Like, dude, oh my god. Like, I joke about this with my friends all the time, but they like put these things in here. It's like, dude, if I could be in Kingdom Hearts, I'd freak out. Dude, if Haley Joel Osment ever decided not to be Sora anymore, I would die if I ever even got the audition. They're like, hey, you'd be a good Sora. I'm like, don't put that thought in my mind. Don't put that thought in my mind. Don't put it in my mind. I'll freak out. I'll freak the hell out. I hope
Well,
Haley Joel Osment doesn't want to like retire or anything like that for Kingdom Hearts. But if he ever did, I'm just saying, like, if the opportunity came up, I would die if I got to read for him.
he still reprised his role as Sora in
Yeah.
Kingdom Hearts 3. Wow, I didn't
Mhm.
even know. Wow, that
He's
is,
been Sora his entire basically his whole life at this point.
yeah, that is insane. I didn't even think. I thought they stopped after. I thought they were like after 2. I thought that was it, but no. God,
Mm-mm.
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, he started as a wee teenager, like a 12, 13-year-old kid, and then
Mhm.
grew up to be a young adult, and then became
Uh-huh.
a full-ass adult, and became an even more full-ass adult.
Just even more and more. Jesus. But no, that's
Yeah.
good. That's awesome. Yeah, I'm pretty sure you're definitely going to get where you're wanting to go to. And I mean, it sounds like a really sound plan. So definitely, man, keep up the awesome work.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, and also, before I go, I always like to ask: is there like a way folks can check, like, check your stuff out, or any social media stuff like that folks can see? I know you stream too, so
Yes,
like,
I do.
yes, yes. So like, if you have any place
Um
like to plug that in.
Yeah, of course. All my socials are usually just my name, Ryan McKeand, or with like a VO at the end of there. My Twitter is Ryan McKeand. My Twitch is Ryan McKeand, but not for long because I've been not super vocal about this, but I've mentioned it before. I'm going to be starting VTubing
Hmm.
later this year. I have my model being worked on. I have my Twitter account for my model being made, and even on my streams on my Twitch channel, I usually am not on cam as often. I haven't been able to stream the past couple weeks because I've just been so busy.
Hmm.
Um, but he if you want to follow my VTuber, I'm gonna start being more active on his account. It's Zeph Alsea VT, ZEPHALCEA underscore VT, or just no underscore, one of the two. His basic premise is that he's a reverse isekai protagonist who gets isekai'd into our world.
That's
Uh
interesting.
yeah, it's really cool. His design is super, super awesome. I've worked on it pretty hard with some friends, and the model's gonna look fantastic. But yeah, I try and stream as often as I can. I try to hit 4 streams a week. I play a lot of different games, just chatting stuff. I play RPGs. I play some recent stuff. I'm probably gonna play the RE4 remake because
Hmm.
it's coming out and or is out. One of the two. Can't remember.
I think it is
Gonna
out.
be playing
Yeah,
that soon. It is out. Perfect.
yeah.
I'm buying that. But yeah, and I'm also on TikTok, but I don't really post as much on TikTok. Also at Ryan McKeand.
Hmm.
Yeah, I love interacting with people. I'm not super active on social media just because it gets pretty toxic sometimes. But if you tag me in something and something I can respond to, that I love to interact. Show me your fan art. Show me your
Hmm.
cosplays. I'll always be like, "Yo, that's so cool." And
Hmm.
stop on by to my Twitch stream where we can hang out. It's like one on one. I also curse a pretty heavy amount, so it might be funny to you to hear me curse considering my voice. One of the 2. Get a laugh out of it.
No, that's not. So wait, you're saying, so your VTube name is underscore VT? Is that right? Or
It's Zeph Alsea. His last name is Alsea. So it's
okay. Uh-huh.
ZEPHALCEA VT.
Yay underscore VT. So that's going to be the new Twitch page.
Yes, that I'm
Okay,
gonna just rename my current Twitch page to that.
to
So if you're
that.
following me already on Twitch, you eventually, maybe this month, if not next month, you'll start seeing the name change. So when I start transitioning the brand.
Okay, yeah, yeah, I already follow you on it, so I'm just like, I just want to be like surprised, like, who is this? Like all of a sudden, so that's cool. Okay, well,
Mhm.
that's cool. Well, guys, thank you so much for geeking out with me. It was awesome to talk to you.
Of course,
I
dude.
loved it. Yeah, and folks, if you definitely love this interview with Ryan McKeand, you could listen to this amongst other awesome interviews that we've done on our website, confreaksandgeeks.com, that has the whole library archive of everything. So once again, this is Davis signing off. Y'all, take it easy. Every time I say y'all, it seems so weird.